Hi everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Encounters Generation Africa panel discussion. Today we're looking at work in progress with a focus on rigorous editing. It's an absolute honor to be here having this conversation with a group of very interesting panelists. And before we start, I would like to give you a very brief introduction to each one of them. We have with us Gambian filmmaker BABUCARR MANKA, whose film The Age we will be discussing. BABUCARR is the creative director of the Gambia's leading audiovisual company, State of Mind Multimedia. Since 2009, he has produced and directed numerous documentaries, TV shows, and commercials. Since 2017, he has developed a keen interest into producing films in his quest to find deeper ways to understand ordinary people and everyday stories. He wrote and co-directed his first short film, Gifts from Babylon, which has been selected for more than 90 film awards, 90 film festivals, and won more than 25 awards. We also have with us editor and editing consultant Matti NÄRÄNEN. Matti is a freelance film editor based in Helsinki, Finland. Matti has completed a master's degree in film editing at Aalto University. Since 2009, he has edited several award-winning feature-length documentaries as well as fiction films, docuseries, and short form. His films have been selected to a number of festivals, including IKKA, Hot Docs, and Doc Point. In 2018, Matti attended the Berlinale Talents Editing Studio, and he has been part of the Doc Incubator Workshop twice. Besides editing, he has also been a mentor in the Documentary Africa Workshop in Zanzibar in 2018. Our third panelist is Finnish producer IKKA VEHKALATH. IKKA is an executive producer at Ivy Films, Toinen Katzen Limited, and the Rough Cut Services. His activities as an independent producer from 2015 forward includes the production of Sundance-awarded Machines by Rahul Jain, as well as Raghu Rai, an unframed portrait by Avani Rai, which premiered at ITFA 2017. He has been a co-producer in Winnie, which was awarded at the Sundance Film Festival, as well as Chris the Swiss by Anja Komfeld, premiered at Cannes 2018. He has been involved in and supported numerous international well-known documentaries like Act of Killing, Look of Silence, Armadillo, Happiness, Don't Breathe, Placebo, and many, many more. He has also been lecturing, leading workshops and masterclasses in different countries worldwide. Today we will look a little bit into his Rough Cut service, which is a program that collects some of the best editors in the world to provide online support to documentary filmmakers all over the world with challenging productions. IKKA is also the consultant producer for the Generation Africa collection, produced by Tiny Mungwe and Don Atkins at Steps, a South African non-profit media organization that works to connect documentary filmmakers to organizations, individuals, and broadcasters using documentary films as a tool for social change. The Generation Africa project centers on the lived experiences of African youth, the largest youth demographic in the world, whose futures will determine the shape of global fortunes over the next few decades. The collection weaves together myriad narratives connected through the theme of migration. The stories are unique in that they give an insider perspective on universal themes, which can only come through stories told from the inside. My name is SARA GOUVEIA. I am a film director, cinematographer, and editor living in Cape Town, and I'll be moderating today's panel. So BABUCARR's film, The Age, is one of 25 films produced under the Generation Africa project, and we're here today to look at the editing process on this film, as well as segments from another Generation Africa project. BABUCARR, I would like to ask you to perhaps give us a little bit of an introduction into your film, The Age. Could you tell us a little bit what the film is about and how you first found the story?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am BABUCARR MANKA from the Gambia, director of this film, for now called The Age. I have been doing a lot of NGO works, and most of the people I work with are UN agencies. So I have heard a little bit of idea from migration. Most of my works have been around migration, but around 2014, 15, I heard of this Malta meeting where EU heads of states came together to see how they can tackle this, and then they pledge a 3.4 billion euros or more to see how they can tackle migration from source countries, countries that are providing these migrants. And Gambia is in the top 7 in the world for migrants arriving in Europe. And I have been working from the Gambia from an NGO perspective, a lot of videos on telling people why not to go, or why the outside wall is, what the government and outside wall is doing so that people can stay here. But I also asked myself, from that Malta meeting, they had 2 major agendas. One is to fortify EU's borders, not to build walls, but to push the EU borders. Before they make it more difficult for you to get to Italy, by making sure the routes that you are going through to get to Italy is more difficult to get. So Libya, Niger, and all these people, so migrants that has been using the road to get to Europe couldn't now get anymore because there are agencies that are funding these people so they cannot get there. So now these people that couldn't get there are now returned. Now it leads me to the second part of the Malta meeting. The Malta meeting said we can solve the migration by making sure we solve the root causes of migration, which is conflict and poverty, but also to make sure we give them how to call it, employment opportunities, so that they can have opportunities in their country. So my documentary is now looking for opportunities that people, migrants that are returned from the that tried to go there but couldn't because the borders are fortified. What can they get when they come to the country? And then I followed a migrant, 2 migrants, but mainly one for the most part of the documentary, on 1-year journey to see how easy or difficult is it to make it in the Gambia. The package that the people in Malta decided that will help Gambians, migrants, how can we, how is that working for this particular migrant? But as I went into the documentary, I realized there are much more to the difficulties for why migrants can make it or not make it than agencies, European agencies of the government or whatever. A lot of them have to do with the individual himself, how knowledgeable the individual is, the environment he's from, ideas of business, patience, and all of these things. So the documentary was looking at the system of reintegration generally, from the NGO perspective, from the government, development partners, but mostly on family and individual conflicts. Yeah.
Great. Just to understand a little bit of how you came to be part of this Generation Africa collection, you know, how developed was the project before they came on board? Did you kind of develop it with them? Can you just tell us a little bit about that process?
Okay, now, I have always tried to be telling stories, but how and which process to use was not there. So these stories were just in my head and say, okay, I might have interest in that. But it was until Tiny reached out to us that I started picking which story do I do, which story do I do. And when I went to them with a story that was not as polished as this, not as elaborate or articulate as this, they gave me mentors and shaped it and developed it to the point where it is now. So the story I am filming now, I had the genesis, the small ideas before I went there. But what it is now is the sum of all the process we went through in the development stage of these stories. I took a story that I can say is a little bit different, very much, almost a little, very much different from what I am. I proposed to them a story that is to what I have, because they have helped me to say, okay, it can be better, this can be changed, this can be do this way. But throughout the process, they give me the dignity to decide the story. They just advise. And even towards the story development, to the filming, to the editing, I still have the dignity to say, okay, this is the story I want to do. And then that's where we are.
Great. In terms of editing, I mean, I'm a filmmaker and I also edit a lot, and often I find it can be a little bit of a daunting experience moving from I suppose, the more free flow part of filmmaking, where you're actually spending time with people and you're filming and you're kind of having all these conversations, and then you have to sit down with all the material you filmed, and now you have to start, putting that that puzzle together into a film that flows. I'm just curious to know, how much footage did you film for this film?
Sarah,
Yes.
can I little bit interrupt, because before we go to the editing, I'm sorry, and
Yeah,
also
yeah, no,
all
go
the
for it.
old friends, because what BABUCARR now said, I was very happy to hear it, because I think that has been the purpose, dignity, to make the film that he wants to make. Even whatever different consultants or mentors or editors are giving different comments or whatever. And I think that when BABUCARR said in the very beginning that he has done NGO films, that it's not only in Africa, it's not only in the generation Africa, it's in everywhere. That when filmmakers has a little bit this kind of, like they try to guess what the financiers or producer or broadcasters wants to do, what kind of film they want to do. And whole idea with the Generation Africa was not to follow that track, actually to follow the track of the filmmakers, that what they have to tell when they go, they don't try to do to us, to white man from Finland or South Africa or Arte or anybody, but they tell their stories so honestly and so unique and so not pretending as possible. And that is, I think, the big thing what BABUCARR said, and what I have felt that in the Generation Africa, Tiny and Don and all the others who have been there working in Africa have been now capable to support the filmmakers, not to make the stories where the immigrants or migrants are objects of the filmmakers, but they become subjects of the film. I'm sorry, but this is really important for me and for the whole Generation Africa, and I was so happy what BABUCARR said, that his experiences has been that. Now I close my mouth.
No, no, no,
Okay, and you continue now, Sarah.
No, it's actually great to have you here, because you are not only involved in Generation Africa, but you also have the RefCut services. So maybe, since we have you here now, do you mind maybe just give us a little bit of insight into the RefCut services? What's the dynamic there? Because I get the feeling that it's a similar principle to Generation Africa. It is about helping people to tell their stories the way they want to tell it. So would you mind just telling us a little bit of how that process goes?
Okay, I will do it, because it's my baby, and I really like it. And like Sarah, and Matti know, and BABUCARR know, you were just asking from BABUCARR how much material you have shot. And in nowadays, very often it can be hundreds of the hours or whatever. And everybody who is doing the documentary films knows that actually in the editing process, you have to look at again the film. The material what it's existing can be that the original purpose or original story is something else, because the reality and life is giving to you another kind of material. And when you are putting that together, and when you are involved 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, an editor perhaps months or even sometimes 1 year editing the material, it's very difficult to see it, like we say, fresh eye. That, and that's why we created RefCut service, that it's online, giving the support to the filmmakers, that we are looking at your RefCut. We are looking at through the dramaturgy or through the structure or even the voiceover, And then we give the feedback, questions, comments, proposals in written form or in a Zoom or in the Skype. Two of us, always individually. So let's say like BABUCARR and MATTI, rough cut service is working like that. It can be that it's fit your film or you will have only one consultant. When your film is always you feel, hey, now it's ready. And then you say, but it could be perhaps better. Then two professionals, experienced professionals, some of the best editors in the world, will come and respecting what BABUCARR wants to do, is looking at the film and asking, why this is here? Why you start the film like this? How about if you do like this? So actually forcing you to look at your film one time more. And now we have worked with more than 100 films from 35 countries. And I can proudly say that the feedback has been incredibly positive, in every case to us, but even publicly, and also the results has been. I will just write the rough cut service website so people can see it also. And now I close my mouth, okay?
Thank you so much, IKKA. So yeah, maybe we can go back to BABUCARR now. And in terms of how many hours worth of footage, I understand that MATTI came on board as an editing consultant when you already had a rough cut of your film. So I suppose I would like to know, as a director and editor of your film, how have you navigated that space between, being there with the people you're filming, that sort of, understanding the story, and then having to sit with all the material that you're so familiar with. How did you start structuring that first cut? Thank you. BABUCARR, I think you're still muted.
Hello. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So because of my cultural context, I edit very fast into my filming. Like the first 3 days of filming, I started editing. Now, but I didn't know the story I was telling. I didn't know where it was ending, the character, the story arc and everything. So I was editing all the main scenes, everything that I thought will become important, might be a setup to a payoff later. The reason why I was editing too fast was I was dealing with people that are always skeptical, migrants that have arrived in the country on day one, and you are following them from every minute. Why are you following us? So to give them back their power, their voice, I wanted to show them the footage, to show them that if you think I am misrepresenting you, notify me. But this is what I am doing. So to give them interest, to give them perspective of what I'm doing, and always give them a voice. So that's how I have been editing for a long time. So it is a good thing towards my character, but it is also a bad thing, because now that thing that I edited without knowing the full perspective of the story becomes now the base edit. So I am always modifying that. I'm not looking for the footage from a fresh point of view anymore to see is that actually the way I should edit it or not. So because of that background, when MATTI came into the picture, I have had a lot of scenes that I thought was interesting. And also in the Gambia, we care a lot about euros. Huh? So if I look at a film and a scene, I calculate how much euros was spent to go to that village and this much footage. No, that whole weekend cannot be lost. We have to use that footage because I spent this much euros, which is a foolish thing. But yeah, these scenes were attached to me because I said, okay, now this is important, because also I'm a journalist. So everything was important to me because I wanted to approach from an information perspective. I want to give you all the necessary angles. But then when MATTI came, they told me, no, you have to pause. You're confusing people. Clean up all these things, focus on your character, his journey, and you will actually get a better story with less information. So yeah, the reason why when Matti came, the footage was a little bit messy, was I was editing very early. Like every footage I shoot, within the next day I edit it, because also I had a lot of depression shooting these things, because it is my first documentary. I wrote treatments of how I expected things to be, and it didn't turn out that way, and it was taking me into directions I didn't expect. So I thought I was losing my story and it was no more interesting. So I will edit to tell myself, to make myself be, so that I can sleep. No, I think that is a good scene. This is a good scene. So when Matti came, it now came from an outside eye, but from a professional perspective to say, okay, this is working, that is not working.
So out of curiosity, I mean, have you've completely finished the production, you're just in post-production, or have you gone back to film anymore since you had a rough cut? I feel sometimes with these long format films, you end up having to go back and film some more, and it becomes this sort of like process between production and post-production. Just curious about your process.
Yeah, so since I started the film, I have unofficially ended shooting 4 times, and each time I say this is the ending. And then as I'm watching it and maybe getting reviews, I say no, this is not the ending. And my character is very impatient, so he's always changing things. So sometimes he does things and I think, no, this is interesting, because also I had an emotional attachment with the character, that sometimes I think, okay, because people might look at the film and say, no, he didn't do well. Sometimes, not from a filmmaker's perspective, but from a broader's perspective, I think, no, I have to bring in scenes that justify what he did. So that has been an issue. So I have 3 or 4 times gone back to shoot. But of recent, like 2 weeks ago, as I said, the film was about my character coming to the Gambia from after trying to make it to go to Europe, but he couldn't make it, and see if he can make it here. But after 1 year, 4 months, he has, until 1 year, he has been saying, no matter what, I'm never going back because I have to make it here. But within the last 4 months, there has been serious issues that he said, I cannot stay here, I am going back. So 2 weeks ago, I just filmed him going back to the same journey that he has spent almost 3-4 years in circles going and suffered a lot, has got a lot of bruises and whatever, been jailed for multiple times. But he's saying this is better for me. So I have not decided if I'm going to put that in the film, but I have shot it. And also when people are watching, because I am looking at how easy or difficult it is for people to make it here, when people are watching, there is another character that made it here. He didn't make, my character didn't end up making it, but the guy he came with made it here and made it very well. So people are saying, we want to understand more, how come he made it? So that guy is actually coming to the office after this session to watch his film again. Because as I said, I always want to give them the voice to show them, okay, this is working well, this is not working, they share ideas. And then I want him to just have one more day with him to show his process right, that Pabi did wrong. So yeah, I have been going back to film, but I think after that scene, I'm done with the film, I believe.
Great. Matti, I think it's your turn now. Coming on board of a project that's already on a rough cut stage, I mean, like me as a filmmaker and editor, I do find it, we end up getting a little bit too attached to the material sometimes. And as BABUCARR was just saying, sometimes you really wanted to be part of the film because you were there, and it's at the time it felt like it was part of the story, but perhaps it's no longer part of the story. So I'm just curious, because BABUCARR is not just a director, is also an editor. How has your process been in terms of navigating that space of ultimately, getting BABUCARR to maybe kill some darlings along the way and just say goodbye to potentially some beautiful scenes that just don't add to the story? Yeah.
Yeah, hello everybody. I think we are working quite nicely with BABUCARR. He's very open to different suggestions. Like if I say that why is this scene here, or do you think that we need it, or I take it away. And he's where he's very open, but he's also very good to say if he knows that something needs to be there. Like, it's not just that I say that this is not good, I think it's not needed, but BABUCARR usually says that, but I think it's needed because, and I think that's nice way to work with, that we change our ideas and we discuss a lot about this. Yeah, we all get tired of the material, me as well. And of course, the filmmaker who has been shooting the film, he's like, he has really much different experience. He has the smell, and he, like, the one shot has been really hard to get, and he got it once. So he's like, this has to be in the film. And of course, we as an editors, we don't have that weight on our shoulders. So that's kind of like, I consider myself as the first viewer of the film. And I don't know anything about how hard the shot has been, or how hard it has been, how much it has cost to get the shot. So I'm kind of free of those attachments, and that's why it's good to use either editors or either fresh eyes who doesn't have this kind of weight in their shoulders. And as how I work with myself, I got the film, BABUCARR's film. I think it was something like 52 minutes long. I watched it, and then BABUCARR sent me like 2 hours of material, extra material that was not in the film. And I kind of watched the material as I would be in the first viewer. I always make notes to the film, to the material. How do I feel when I see this scene? I try to listen to myself. If I cry or if I laugh, I always make a note. This made me laugh. This something funny about this. This made me cry. I felt emotional, and that's something that I do that I don't get, or when I get tired to the material, that I remember that this is emotional. This part of the material is emotional, and you can use it, and you need to use it, because that is a fact that, like, after you have seen it 2 or 3 times, it doesn't come up with the same emotion anymore. Yeah, I don't know, did I answer your question, or what this is like?
Yeah, that was great. That was great. I think perhaps we could look at that character introduction scene that BABUCARR sent. We've got the before and after. So we've got the cut that BABUCARR had put together, and then we've got the cut that Matti, you've helped with in terms of reshaping or bringing some narration to it, just to make it sort of like a fuller introduction to the main character. I think perhaps we could now just watch those 2 versions. I think they're only about 2 minutes each or something like that. And then we can discuss how you moved from one space to the other. Daryl, can we please play, the name is Babu intro, please.
Hey, General, Marcel. sign kanata bara bada la yo. Yeah, after kada I will no campo de paso de mola mola mola. Yeah. Adiamu mansia bo alai ko la dan. Yeah, opportunity do not at once. Yes, you can Cairo kono bo mo jamala funo ni use ka. Okay.
Thank you so much, Daryl. I think perhaps before we show the second clip, which is the latest version, Matti, I suppose I would like to ask you from your point of view when you first watched this sequence, and maybe taking from what you just said as well in terms of when you first watch something, you look for, you know, the emotional side of the scene, what touches you, what you think you can maybe build on. When you first watched this scene, what was your first take on it? What did you think could be improved? And then we'll show the newer scene. Thank you.
It's quite a long time ago when I first watched that scene already, but as the beginning of the film overall, I felt that I was kind of lost with the character. I didn't know who was the main character. And it like there was like in this scene, there's in the car, there's lots of people and one is talking in the phone, but he is actually not the main character who is talking into the phone. So I kind of felt that in this, it's in the very beginning of the film, this scene, and I felt that it's the main character needs to be somehow presented well, and what he is up to and what is his like goal. Because also when I watched the very first rough cut, I was kind of, for the whole film, I was missing the main character's direction. What is his goal? Where is he aiming to? I kind of felt that that was missing. So when BABUCARR sent me this material, 2 hours material, there was this one interview with the main character where he kind of told all this, where am I coming from and where am I going to. So I just wanted to try that maybe if we could use it as a voiceover, and I sent it to BABUCARR, and I think he liked it as a success. And of course there is temporary music at the moment, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think maybe we can actually watch the second version now.
Can I?
Oh, yes, Inka.
I'm sorry interrupting, but this is quite common actually in the rough cut service and even in the Generation Africa. And those who are now perhaps listening, even it sounds so simple and everybody should know it, how to establish the protagonist. Because I remember exactly the same what Matti said. The fellow who is speaking at the phone and saying, I have to stop now because there are several people who needs to use the same phone. It's a very good line. It's telling so much, but at the same time, it's lifting him up to be almost like a main character. And if you are confused in the beginning, then it took a long time emotionally before you are with the protagonist. So this is really almost the rules number one. How do you bring your main character or characters into the film? Okay.
Great, thank you. Daryl, could we please play Matti intro, please?
Hey, General, with myself.
Samba silo ni kai bos ni siri nyam pol ta so da entre bulo ne mu nek nyima ta buddo ko fana do ko ga ko ni ko do so kan je efita so foi ni kai no ko ka fendi no me sa ne no yo family go no lo ko la so gore ko mo min ta mo silo la ni Bravo jammer right now, comme sinafolo no plan mo shuti no sinafolo nyoni hala na plan mo shuti no. Sa nga men je comme conditional ko no na te ko men comme na rasiri njaay no ngado ko ke no nga men so re no ngalon ko nga na so re no.
Thank you, Daryl, sorry. BABUCARR, can you tell me, you know, since you've made these changes and you brought that narration on, how do you feel about this new intro? I mean, I have to say, from my perspective, having watched both the first one, I actually really loved the observational feel to it, but I was also very much unsure of who was the character I was following. I was almost unsure whether it was maybe a group of friends or, you know, like it was a little bit. So if you can tell us, yeah, how these elements have helped you start shape the character from the beginning of the film onwards.
Okay, so the biggest impact for me was time. Because of that one scene, I am now able to kill a lot of my other babies. The babies I thought I needed to establish one, Pabi traveled before, and this is the second time second time he went. Another, that the reason why he kept going because he couldn't make it in the Gambia. And another lot of scenes about now I want to sit here and make it. So every time I'm watching my film, I go up to 30 minutes, 25 minutes, and you don't know what Pabi wants. You don't know where he's from. You don't know all these dynamics because I am using one scene or two to establish line to establish the same effect. Yes, so as you said, the observational film, throughout the film, I have tried as much as possible, especially from the beginning, not to ask them questions like Paddy is always smoking. And it disturbs me, but I never tell them turn it off. I never tell them turn off the music. So the sound is always interrupted throughout the film. Whatever he wants to do, that's what he does. I don't control him. So, and that element too was an additional for me because I was a stranger in his world, so I was just looking around. I didn't want to come as a professional crew and filmmaker to impose my ideas and perspectives. So I was just looking around, and that gave me a lot of perspectives that at the time of my first cut, yeah, I liked those things because like these people are just coming, you see them spraying things to them because they were smelly. They've been in the trucks for 2 weeks without taking bath. Nobody takes care of them. So, you know, all those dynamics was important to me. But when I add all those dynamics that I love, I have a first act that has very dull pace. Very dull, the time is dragging, you don't know much about the character. But now I have to let go of those things to make sure from the onset, you know what this film is about.
Great. Yeah, I mean,
Can I say something? Yeah. Of course. Now I also, when I watch the cut again, I have to admit that I like the spraying things, and that's usually how it happens. That first you kind of do it very, like we agreed that we tried to make Papi's story very clear first, and we made it. It's like 25 minutes totally, only the Papi story. And now we are at the point when we are start adding things back, because then you take quite a lot out of them to make the story clear, to make the story working, and then you start to add things like, I think this spraying deodorant, it's like, that's nice, but you can then add those things a little bit back when you first go a bit more into the story to make it work story-wise. And then you add the feeling, and then you add the kind of this little salt and pepper into the film.
Yeah, and if I continue from Matti, I think this is a very good example of actually how the film editing is processed. First, you had a confusion, then you make it clear, and then you, let's say, then you add the life. Then you make it live again, you know. Because if you try to do it in the situation of the confusion, I mean, you are confused, it's very difficult to solve. But when it has this clear, like for example, I love it this when he says, I have to give the phone to others because there are several who are using the same phone, the same line. Can it be added as a voice there? Is there enough, perhaps longer shot on the main protagonist that we can add perhaps this line that we can hear in the bus? Or second thing is also, will he tell first about the problem? What is the order of his voiceover is going? Is it first that this was my second attempt, or is it why he's going? That have to be talked also. And how much then after the title, how much there is his narration? Are you building now the expectation that his voiceover is carrying the film? So there is quite many questions already when you look at here. But one thing here is important. In the first version, BABUCARR was a little bit showing how they came. You are first in there, then you are in the boat, then you are in the car, then you go out, then you walk. And that is very naturalistic to show what happens. It doesn't have emotional message. But when there is a narration, suddenly it comes, it's not so important what they are doing. I mean, that is the second story only to tell, that they use the different, okay, I stop. I'm very keen of, we talk like hours about the editing sometimes. I close my mouth third time now. Okay.
No, I really love that. Also, that idea that the first edit is it's complicated and messy, and then you start simplifying it, and then you have to bring some of that sort of messiness almost back in, because that's actually the initial life of the film. You know, that's perhaps where some of the, you know, more intuitive decisions had actually been made, you know. So it's quite nice, that sort of back and forth between these different versions of the film. I mean, I don't know if you guys would like to actually watch the versions that BABUCARR sent that are called Overcomplication. And one of them is a long scene that he had cut himself as well. And then with Matti, they managed to really simplify it, and it really feels like it just goes straight to the point, and you can understand where you're going with that scene. So I think perhaps we could show that one now. Daryl, please, if we could show Overcomplication, BABUCARR. Yes, thank you.
Nagara.
She wants my kid, you know. Damn light the hell. Bro, I'm gonna put it here, but no. I'm gonna be the album for the day. No, for the day. I'm coming around with you.
Why?
I'll come in. Mick. Len dia mo taman toro ko na ba?
Fabi.
Mick. Alimba.
Jabi.
Gara famot.
Wallahi of. Hani billahi tabasir ni da ko da. Mo kesti bam. Allahu akbar. Muna ka da mu Allahu akbar.
Wala Mick. Wawa ya.
Alam ali sa sabu ni.
E kanyali.
Kila.
E ba kul.
Ya rabbi mari ban saba man sakalla.
Amin Allah.
Ta'ala ma ban da be kire.
Amin Allah.
Karin ni be ban sun horomo.
Amin Allah.
Ya ko kala ya ko ala ban la khairul ba.
Amin Allah.
Sakalla ya so.
Amin Allah.
kun ninki alme ya ko ko khaira ko.
Amin Allah.
Kan nga ba da sallu. Alhamdulillah minna ma man so ki.
Amin Allah.
Allim be bo nya horomo ko.
Amin
So
Allah.
ba horomo ma la ya ko la ke ka horomo ko.
Amin Allah.
Man so la fan ni sila horomo.
Amin Allah. Amin Allah.
Allim bo nya horomo.
Amin Allah. Lisa, raga muna son ka fon boy, fa en man toro dia mo kono wa. Na rak man ni ji fa raga son ko ma ino.
Ni buka tu sote ima absence tu. Wala ni mo long ko barang ko so ano. Ibu ka barang ko mari. Ya mo do ka barang ko barang ko mari ko barang ni ko ano. So ko bi jamala bang ka pun da pun diro. Adi ana ke na mo dia na. Ari ko tu. No. Bisa ada kita ni sino. Ni ele kama mtu akoitoro muma sadinwele. Isita sino la jana ko bambu. Ita wala hanni ko yo kali ni ate ni ko ko moto kula ko. Ika nega sino la ni wulte ita buku kala. Ni mobile pile hala kidne game pile de. Ko ita isiele la ko. Ita mari bara ko ko.
Len show van jam ni fa ni show men. Ya mo siar. Ai. Sonda ya sa. Wah. Ibu dah memang
Bobby. Taylor, good.
Tolak. No problema. Ako fuka kara akala para plaso bon la fa nga no ko mi ko ngara na ñu nga ko na bol ko do dia jana kara basi bo ñu lor na ñam ba no ko la ñam ni ma la ko lu ñal na di awr ci sa lu dem walu na ko le no ko ma ko do blando no ko borol ñi ñi ni yo blando le fa no ñe ci prasto mo ndam ko ni
Nabi bo ñu dal fama na da mason di ha
ala no musuma
so ha ra di na mason na after ay findi mo ko ñaan na bi mo no
bo ni mo ñu
ha
Yeah. Five. We're going. Ndio sanga na kanya moment sina sadi no antara je no kulo.
Hello?
I don't know life.
Abesonala.
Dara.
No abesonala. Kuna time wala.
Yeah. Now I see no I'm go force. Hey man. Really? Okulo fa kodo so.
Yeah, of course.
Janin kara. Nga do ko kan jande no ka timba do ko kan jande. Cira boso kan na simo iti tawo.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Ni ba fra gambel. Boso mora rek. Algerian ko la mo la bango ba. Français ko ye mo. Français le bo be. Silo le be no Algérie te. Mano.
Algerian in France.
Mano be je bor pour kata wal blanto no. Aw fa ko la ni am reje be fa. Ni raje ni am da rek ki be fa. Sotola ko di Algerian no le ko di Moroccan la ni mu da wol ke fay wulo la kon. Sa ni ba mu re mo. Ko be kata ta sa do ko na fa fi ndi fa ye mu. Ye soro. Fo jandi mbosol be fa. De la combat boss 26 boss. Abe almari mo fon. Andu ke jola français ke jola pour ya mol di porna. Ye mol mo ndi ko dol di e mo ni e mo ray no 50 euro. Sojaro mil kamo mo ke jowal. Ni am kamo fo mo 50 euro ke jowal. Hello. But ñaari ifra logula ndo jela mi no ko bo ni nga ko la sa awe nyame amanjere no fa ngoni samba bi ko ci bugala so ma nyata dal bari bulay no so ko do wantara je no nga espena ba nga sa e bat ni bonna bari bi no at least za try no nga setul ngola fa nga bi ko sinta fa da ndo ko do wantara bulo ko no nga so nyata dal bari bulay no nga so ni mira bari fa at least fo ko do tara ko ndo no so e bugala kunu gale ko do men nga fa le sa wala no nga so at least la fa at least ni mira ni ko do nyeta no bari bi no go bulana ci fo kon e kero ko bana bas.
Thank you so much, Daryl. So perhaps before we actually watch the short version that you, BABUCARR, that you worked together with Matti on, I mean, for me, what this material really shows me is how comfortable everyone is with you, and I think there's something really powerful about that because you really feel like you're in there with your protagonist. But it does feel a little bit like we don't really know exactly where we're going with the material. So yeah, I mean, I suppose I'd like to know while you were editing by yourself this sequence, what were your struggles? Why do you think you weren't finding the thread? And then Matti, you can also maybe add into how you started looking for the solutions in how to simplify it and how to get to, yeah, just like a simpler version of it.
Yes, as I said, when I was editing these scenes, I didn't know how the film will end. So I was preparing for everything. As you have seen, the things I was setting up here is the family conflicts. Because he just arrived and this is a child you have not seen for more than 2 years. But because he's not your child, he's your brother's child, there's too many conflicts around him. And the reintegration is also psychological. The psychological reintegration process, I want to establish that. But also some things that happened on the road are still dragging you now. He's talking about debt, things he owed somebody behind. But also we are seeing his character a little bit of why he needs to take care of that guy's money because of these things. So he always wants to do things for others that has done things for himself. So I was trying to establish all these complicated stuffs but then it was now dragging the time and slowing things down. So generally, but the reason why it was difficult for me because I didn't know how the story is going to end. So I was just setting things up to see possible things. But that footage I edited for steps to have an idea at the time what I am filming, because then we were just filming the first act. Yeah.
Ika, do you want to say something as you're unmuted?
I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah, I can say that I also feel when I watch the material, I also feel that BABUCARR has, I mean, it's really unique, the material, and he has been really close to the characters, actually all of them, but also the main character. And that's what is really the uniqueness and fineness in this material. But as said, it's like there's in this version there was a little bit too much of things going in the all direction. I think that there is like they are trying to tell the family business and the, like you said, BABUCARR, like the integration part and everything, and still we are kind of getting to know the main character in this point of the film. So that was kind of, when we started editing together, we actually made this index cards and we went the whole, like put all the scenes there, and then we discussed that what scenes are needed and what to take out and how to make the structure of the film. And that's kind of where I think where we end up to this next version, yeah.
All right, Daryl, should we show MATTI cut from that same folder?
Hey, yo, Casimiro. Nagara. She wants my kid, you know. Damn light the hell. Mick. Alimbara.
Jabi.
Gada farmer.
Wallahi. Allahu Akbar.
Shira boso kana fon simo yitita bo.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Kini frère Gambela. Boso borra rek. Algérien ko laf mo fo la bango ga. Français ko yo mo. Français le bo be. Silo le be no Algérien. Mano.
Algérien et français.
Mano be je bor pour kata wal blanto no. Aw fa ko leer ni am reje be fa. Ni raje ni am la rek ki be fa. Soto ko di Algérien le ko di Morgano lo ni am da wol ke fay wulo la kon. Sa ni be mo re mo. Ko be kara ta khan saro ko na fa findi fa yi mu. Yi soro. Fu jan ni bosol be fa. De la combat boss 25 no 26 boss abe almari mo fon and we kejo la français kejo la pour ya mol di porna ye mol mo ndi ko dol di de ich mo ni mo ray no 50 euro sojaro mel kam mo to kejo wal ni am kam mo fon 50 euro kejo wal
Great, thank you, Daryl. Yeah, so the scene itself, it's much shorter. It feels a lot more structured. Matti, I like what you said about the index cards in terms of like how to structure scenes and how to structure the film, and I think that's quite important. Also in terms of just remembering the footage that you have, because there's maybe moments there that you lost, but maybe you'll use it later on in the film. So you want to make sure that you remember what you have at all times. So I'm curious as well in terms of that process of I suppose cataloging footage, or like what's your process? What's your methodology in that sense?
You mean mine or BABUCARR's?
Yes, we can go with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I usually try to go through the whole footage or whatever is given to me. I mean, of course, it's not like if it's like 800 hours of material, it's not possible to go through everything, but I usually try to go as far more as much as I can. And as said, I'll always make my marks into the material. I use colors. I usually green is like green is like it's important for the story. Then I use yellow if my hair is getting up. And then I use red if I'm crying or laughing aloud. So this kind of, I make my 3 marks to the material. It's usually the story marks, and then it's like emotional marks. And then it's based on that I usually do my first rough cut. And usually I try to use as much as these red and yellow colors as possible because they are the emotional parts. Now I forgot this question. What was how to go through the material? It was.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're already saying it. It's that idea of like, how do you catalog the material also in a way that you will remember it? Because this is the thing, especially when you spend a lot of time editing something, is that you will always do a lot from the first cut, but then maybe you need to bring it back, like IKKA was saying as well. Then you kind of start bringing things back. So how do you keep track of all of that so that you don't forget?
That's of course it's different for everybody. But for me, it's like when I write, then I remember something that I always write into the scene or the picture that this is like Bobby is smoking weed. And then I write it there that Bobby is smoking weed. So that way I can find it. You can use search in a Premiere or in a video editing software. But for me, it's easy to remember things when you write them down into the material, and then you also find them quite fast because you see that there is a marker on the material and there's something in that point. So yeah, I'm very precise. Like I'm doing just only what there is in a picture. Like Bobby is smoking weed is a good example that I write to the marker that Bobby is smoking weed here, and then I use the colors to mark the emotional thing or the impact on me. Like if Bobby is smoking weed is what is happening in the picture, but if I felt when the first time I saw it that, wow, this is really cool. The atmosphere in the picture is something, or there's something like I really get emotion, then I mark it on red or orange, like this is emotionally important and it has emotionally impacted me. So I make my markings like story-wise and emotional-wise.
IKKA, do you want to comment on the 2 cuts we've just watched? The first one and then that one, the second one, which is obviously much simpler, goes straight to the point. Yeah, would you like to maybe comment a little bit on that? Because I'm sure it relates to the rough cut service as well in terms of how do you flesh out the scenes? How do you keep the rhythm of the film flowing? All of these things that feed into a good edit.
Yeah, I think. Is it okay before you answer a little bit continue with Matti said, because when I'm listening I always, like BABUCARR saying, I'm always thinking this is also this, let's say, index cards, or then the writing, even the shot or the scene or sequence, what is there. Very often we are in the rough cut service, we always ask a scene list, a list of the scenes. It means that actually when your film is coming ready, your index cards are written out not only like listing, he is coming home, but also what is the dramaturgical importance of something. He is coming home hoping that he will be welcomed, or being afraid that there is anger. So suddenly the setup of the situation is when you write the scene list, a little bit like in the old books, you have the chapter. You had a chapter where a hero comes and kills the enemy and is crying after that. So how to write the scene list dramaturgically will help to read the film also, to understand what the director and editor have tried to do. Not only information, but dramaturgical importance. And yes, I was looking at this and I remember, because I have seen the material before and I was totally confused. Not confused, but oh, this is this messy life. And now we are repeating what Matti said already before. Now it's clear and it's more emotional, I felt, because I can concentrate on his emotions when he has come back, what he has experienced. Now, of course, when you look at the whole film, what is the also then how to keep it, how to have the film this in a one way, this, how to say, this enlarged family messiness, you know, that there is cousin there and somebody brother there and this one and that friend and that one, how to keep that alive also. Sorry, let's say that we had one film from where when it was edited, because it was very messy and confusing, one character was totally taken away. But when the film was, how to say, edited, he will be added back to create this feeling of life and messiness, because life is very messy, actually, very irrational. So how to follow the film, main character, and at the same time to have this lively environment alive. But like now, I would say that this scene, what I saw, that was functioning very clearly and emotional. And that is with the film editing, that is the most important. And when you see the whole film, then it's coming the time to look at if something has to be put back or added or changed or whatever.
BABUCARR, would you like to add to that? I see you're unmuted, so I'm not sure if you wanted to add something.
Yes, as I said, of all the talks we have had with Generation Africa and Rough Court Service mentors, there's always this word that kept coming: dramaturgy, dramaturgy, and dramaturgy. And I always keep asking, where do you keep the balance between exposition and dramaturgy? Because I used to always think in the beginning, we need to understand all these things before we go to, before you can understand what happens next. But I was through this whole process, I have learned that sometimes less is more. And then exposition can kill your peace. Like even people from my country that has watched this, some part of my edits, they call security like, I don't know where the story is going. I don't know what is happening. It's confusing. There are too many things they're happening. So for even people that have seen this over, I mean, by seeing, I mean, they have seen people like this. They know the cultural context is complicated for them. Talk less of people that don't know the Gambia. They don't know the language. They don't know the new cultural nuances. So that's why I was excited to see how they can clean this up. And then the first act has always been my headache. Tiny is here listening. I have always been crying to them about how much I hate the footage, because you know I've not been, if it has not touched me as the first day Matti said, I said, okay, I had fear before I to tell power shape the truth into a perspective. I don't know if I'm making sense. So now, before this experience, am I breaking?
Yes,
Yes,
you're
the network. I can notice that the network is breaking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sorry, the network in the Gambia is a little bit bad.
But we can hear you now, so I think you can keep going. Or maybe not. I think you're breaking again. I've actually got a quick question here, so I think I'm just going to ask it from the Q&A because it relates to this idea of how to catalog footage and all of that. So it's from Liani. She's saying, Matti's approach to marking footage resonates with me. I wonder whether he works predominantly in the edit software to make the selections, or does he also use transcripts?
Usually I have no transcripts.
Sorry,
so
the internet was.
Okay, you're back. Okay, Matti's just going to answer a question and then we can get back to you, all right?
Yeah, usually on the documentaries, I don't have much transcripts or the directors don't want to give them to me for some whatever reason. But what I do is I discuss a lot with the director and I'm trying to find out what is his or her approach to the film. What does he want to say with the film? And then of course, I keep that in mind when looking through the material. I'm like, I know what the director wants. I know what the director needs. So I kind of try to focus on those things. But then I always keep myself open to emotions, to my feelings, whatever in the material resonates for me. So it's kind of like one good editor, Zoel Alexis, who is also part of the rough cut service. She once said that an editor, it's like when you're going fishing, you go fishing, you know what fish you want to catch. So you take the right kind of these bites and you go to the right place where those fishes are, and then you are trying to catch them. So it's kind of same in a movie, that it's no use that you just like go blindly and feel like everything, but you need to know where you're heading, where you're aiming to find those right parts in a material. But just to remember to keep yourself open for everything else.
And Sarah, if I can, this is what BABUCARR said, this is sometimes quite common, how to say, perhaps mistake. You don't need to give everything in the beginning. You know, you can be that but you have to give enough that the people know where they are or where to create the curiosity, so that step by step you go forward. You know, that, how to say, that the audience comes so curious that they want to see next one, next one, next one, next one, instead that you give too much by the narration or by the voiceover or by the text boards. With the text boards, it's very easy to give like in this film, the basic information, the context. But then after that, curiosity, to leave a little bit gaps even, you know, sometimes. Something is open, not to create a confusion.
Oh, yeah, Matti, go for it.
Sorry. Yeah. To the question still. Yeah, it was a question about transcripts. So, yeah, there are sometimes transcripts, and I read them, but I usually still mark the material. Like I like to mark the material. Just as I told that I like when I write them myself, I kind of remember more. So, but of course, if there's long interviews, then I usually use the transcriptions to kind of make it easier to work. So yeah, I use transcripts if they are available.
That makes sense. Ika, I wanted to ask you, should we show a little bit of the clips you sent? This is my story. I don't know if you also want us to, well, I was imagining that we could show the first 2.5 minutes just before chapter 1 starts, just to see how to pull the audience into a story, because I think it's quite beautifully put together. Do you think it's worth showing the before and after as well? There's subtle changes, so we can talk about those as well. Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
It depends a little bit of the time, because there is also the question of the, let's say, how do establishing the protagonist, and also the use of the, how to say, text boards, you know, in the beginning of the film. A little bit the same like BABUCARR has. Okay, let's see you have it there.
We have both drafts. We can show both if we.
Okay, yeah, let's go to see with the both drafts.
All
and
right.
This is actually one of those films in the Generation Africa that it's a little bit different. It's a little bit, somebody could say, more artistic or more experimental. It has planned to be also as an exhibition, that person will go from one room to next room and the third room. And the story, I think you will understand when you look at the film. It's only 20 minutes film fully. And example of this, how small changes can make quite a big difference. I think so.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Ika. Daryl, if you could screen, this is my story draft 2, which is the one that's on the G drive. And we'll just do the first 2.5 minutes until we get to the first chapter, and then we'll screen the draft 4 afterwards. Thank you so much.
I believe that everyone has a story to tell, and our shared human experiences connect us one way or another. It takes extreme courage to love, to fight, to win, to lose, to survive, to calm your demons, to trust yourself, to trust people, to accept what you're not able to change something, to change yourself, to love yourself, to learn, to unlearn, to teach, to be taught, to feel, to forgive, to find hope, to find yourself, to express yourself, and to find your place in this mean but beautiful world.
L'instabilité politique de 2015 au Burundi résultait du fait que le président alors en place voulait briguer un troisième mandat. La nouvelle de la disparition de ma mère m'a trouvée en dehors de la capitale. Je suis revenue à Bujumbura dans le seul but de la retrouver. À peine suis-je arrivée.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Ika, I mean, if you don't mind, I think we could actually show the other clips straight away because the differences are quite subtle. And I kind of feel maybe the audience won't notice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Go on.
Okay, so Daryl, if we could now screen the same 2.5 minutes from This Is My Story draft 4, which should be in the Dropbox.
Just a little bit longer, okay?
Okay.
I believe that everyone has a story to tell, and our shared human experiences connect us one way or another. It takes extreme courage to love, to fight, to win, to lose, to survive. To calm your demons, to trust yourself, to trust people, to accept what you're not able to change something, to change yourself, to love yourself, to learn, to unlearn, to teach, to be taught, to feel, to forgive, to find hope, to find yourself, to express yourself, and to find your place in this mean but beautiful world.
L'instabilité politique de 2015 au Burundi résultait du fait que le président alors en place voulait briguer un troisième mandat. La nouvelle de la disparition de ma mère m'a trouvée en dehors de la capitale. Je suis revenue à Bujumbura dans le seul but de la retrouver. À peine suis-je arrivée, j'ai été accusée d'avoir pris part aux manifestations contre le gouvernement. Au fait, avant de quitter la capitale, je faisais partie d'un groupe de jeunes curieux qui allaient observer les gens qui manifestaient sur la route près de chez nous. Mon intention était innocente, mais par la suite, nos photos sont apparues sur des images prises par un journaliste présent ce jour-là. Et cela fut pour moi le pire des cauchemars. Mais voilà donc, arrêté alors que je cherchais ma mère.
inkuta z'icyo gihome si nk'izi ngizi, zasaga n'izari zaramenyerejwe imibiri itotezwa, imibiri yakubitishwaga imigano cyangwa indembo.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much. IKKA, would you like to take it from there?
Yeah, just a very briefly, actually. Yeah, I know that we have I sent a wrong clip because it takes so much of time. Actually, the story is that a woman migrant who has been a refugee has written her story, and then 7 people are reading it, different languages, men and women, and it's built in a way in the beginning that it didn't have any chapters of anything. I mean, the story is quite dramatic. People are crying at the end. And the main character, the woman, was presented in the first cut, in the first draft, almost after 1 minute after later. In 3 minutes place, we could see who she is. In this second cut, the people are reading, but we don't see the main character before the second chapter. I mean, how to say, it's a little bit difficult to explain to you, but I think that the tension if you go over the first 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, who is the person whose story is told? You start to wait to see her. And to understand that the people are reading somebody's stories, it's a little bit in the beginning when the texts come to the screen, that the last one, that the most important come after the pauses and say, lend me for a while, walk in my shoes. Hopefully it will open to the audience what is the film about. Having a chapter, name of the chapter, especially in the films which have the, how to say, dramaturgical problems or which are time flow, very often I would say it's better to write in black half a year later or 1 year later when trying to build the time flow with the flowers or rivers or wind. It's better to say it directly. Or even if you have a dramaturgically very different contents, like the first part is unbearable memories. She's arrested, she's tortured, she's raped, and she's almost killed. It's told during first 4.5 minutes, actually, hold that story. Then we go to the next story. Again, you have a text board. And then you have this like introduction woman who is reading a little bit like poetry, who is not emotional at all. She's a little bit like introducing, and to shift from her to the next one, you need a chapter title. Okay, but sorry, like to say, it's a little bit difficult to see from these small clipses.
No, I really enjoyed it. I really felt from the first bit of text and the first image, it kind of pulls me in, and I want to know more about about this person. So I think the team's done a great job. Matti, I'm interested from your point of view as an editor as well, seeing the two openings. I mean, the differences really are subtle, but they're there, and they do add a little bit of a different emotion to the cut. Yeah, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, of course, the first time was the first time to see the beginning. Yeah, I kind of really, I mean, it started really emotionally, and you really felt that you want to see or hear more. But it was kind of funny what I felt, that the music did a really great had a really big impact on the film. I actually like the first music more, but then in the second version, I like the text when they came like kind of not in the middle of the screen, but here and there. So it kind of felt for me that it's more like coming from the head, kind of these thoughts which come from around your head or wherever. Yeah, but I really felt interested in the story. I'm kind of sad that we couldn't see more of it.
If we go back this, and there is one very famous editor who used the example saying that, by the way, the music in the second one, the first one, the second one, it's not the finals. She's testing, and there is next cut coming. She said, like, just think that you are, the rocket is going to the space, and it should reach Mars. If you make a 1 centimeter mistake, in the direction, when it's on the Earth, it doesn't go to the Mars. It goes to the wrong direction. It's so far. He said it's exactly the same with the beginnings of the film, that she said every half of the second is so meaningful. Every text font is so important. Every sound is so important, because we can say, like, if you look at that, what we saw, the young woman who is reading in the beginning is actually a little bit too long. And now the question is, how do you solve it? I mean, she's reading very well, it's very well written, but there is a little bit too much. Especially if you go to the second lady who is talking about Burundi and revolution, there is nothing very interesting. So it goes high and then drops down. So that's why even adding the chapter, it's giving you breathing, and it gives you shift to the another mood now. You come more, how to say, informative. You are not so emotional. Now we go to this little bit another kind of mood. So it's I think this kind of films, it's actually a very good example how actually small things, the expression of the face, turning the head, can be so important to read the film. And in every film, like BABUCARR's film, there is the same kind of moments which I feel really stays in your mind, and how they come out so well as they should be. That's always again and again. Very often we do so many rough cuts before we are happy.
That's very true. And to add to that, that that we just saw, it seems so very well thought, that there is like everything that is in there must be very well. I mean, they need to have a meaning, because all the pictures are very well shot, and they are very like the whole film gives you this kind of emotion that everything is very well thought. So you need to have every blink of an eye, or every smile, or everything needs to have some kind of meaning with that.
Great. I mean, I think we're supposed to open for Q&A now, but I've only received one question in the little Q&A box. So I don't know if there's any more questions coming from the Facebook page. Yeah, Taryn, I don't know if you can help us with that, or Daryl.
Can I make a question to the Matti or BABUCARR or SARA to you?
Yeah,
sure. Have you noticed, because like with BABUCARR's film or the other films, you are following some actions or events or whatever. There is a certain time. I mean, now I'm talking about the film that it's almost like a told in a chronological order. We follow the time, you know. And then if you change that scene has happened here and another one here, but you change the order. Have you had a sometimes feeling that it doesn't work? How do you say that you cannot bend the time in editing if you follow what happens to the main character? No?
I mean, I suppose it can be problematic in the sense of the narration of the story, but I think sometimes you do have to bend time, as you said it a little bit, maybe playing a little bit with it to actually add to the threads that you're looking for in the story. But I guess if you're trying to stick to a chronological kind of storytelling point of view, then it becomes a little bit tricky. I mean, I don't know, Matti, you've edited so many films. You're probably the most experienced here in terms of how much bending of time you can do in your timeline.
Yeah, I'm very open bending time, and I usually don't consider that very much. Or I don't think it in when I'm editing. I don't think when this is chronological or not. I usually just like think it if it's dramaturgically good to put this in this place, and all these chronological problems, I think they are more like if suddenly there's a winter or dark or these kind of things that somehow disturb the emotional storytelling, then it's a problem. But in the if there's not this kind of something that distracts you from the emotion from the story, then I don't care actually. I like to edit without thinking about the chronology. Yeah.
Because we have discussed quite a lot of this with the editors in the rough cut service, and we say the same what Matti is saying. You follow the story, you follow the dramaturgy. The time, it's not always so important. But surprisingly, sometimes when you have problems in the film, and then you ask from the director, did this really happen in this order? I mean, he has done a rough cut or whatever. Did this really happen in this order? And then they said, no, but we thought it's more emotional or it's stronger in that way. But the problem is that experiences of the person, emotional experiences, he or she is carrying with him or her. And subconsciously, we have a little bit arguing of this. Subconsciously, we say, audience can feel it. Audience can feel that now she has something that actually she will. Do you understand what I'm saying? That Matti is not the same person anymore when she goes out from his room now than before he came to this discussion. And of course, if it has affected to him, then it can affect also in the editing. Sorry, sounds very, but this is something that I'm just now working with one where it didn't function the first 15 minutes. There was something wrong. And the reason was exactly this. And when it was changed another way, it looked like this. Wow, we should have seen it already. We spent 1 week struggling with something that is so simple that he have rearranged the time in a way that didn't function. Why, even you cannot point anything, not the winter, not the weather, now the people look how they are dressed. Same things. Still, it affected to them. By the way, BABUCARR, Do you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I think that your
film. I'm hearing you.
I think that your film is also a wonderful example of another thing that it's very often for the filmmaker. Filmmaker starts to do the film and has the certain idea or certain idea about somebody. And when filming, your idea or your knowledge about the person is changing. He is not so bad what you thought, or he's not so good what you thought, or this doesn't go where you thought. It's not very easy to change your mind setting. Come on, I'm doing a film about SARA, and I thought she's a wonderful young woman that I want to follow her life, and then I found out that she's actually really asshole. You know, how do I then do the film? To get rid of this, that when the life is changing, you know, that you have to accept it. That is not easy, not in the editor, especially for the directors. And that's why I would say BABUCARR has really, you are not a prisoner of the past. When something changed, then you go and shoot again. Like I think that what you have now shot 2 weeks ago, it sounds really great. And there is a question.
There's also BABUCARR had something to say. Did you?
Yes, BABUCARR, you've raised your hand. Did you want to speak?
Yes, I wanted to speak about the topic of bending time. Can you guys hear me? I'm struggling with my internet. I just want to use my full data index. But can you hear me right now as I'm speaking?
Yeah, we can hear you very well. Thank you.
Yes, so just before I got disconnected, I was talking about how MATTI empowered me with just a 15-minute cut because it opened me to the idea of bending time can actually work. Because the biggest difficulty I had with my first cuts before we officially entered the important. To his house. Day 2, he woke up and went to his family. And then went. So to us, the Gambians, where I'm, sequence is a bit important to understand things. But then it dragged the story. But when Marty sent me a cut where I'm seeing one appearing in day 5, scenes after day 5, I was laughing. What is happening? But it served the story well in the it was becoming more emotional. And I could easily edit the documentary. Marty will take the first act. I now start again and edit it. I got into Marty's point of view. Because as I said, I am just new into the. So when Marty comes and is going to a certain direction, but because I am a student and these things, I want to show where he and where I am right now. So I follow his journey. Sometimes we go to a level, I say, no, it's better the way it was. So I re-edit it. But sometimes I am fascinated by what he brings. Like just 3 weeks ago, I got something that I said, this is a comfortable cut for me. But then 3-4 days ago, he sent me a cut. I'm like, wow, this is much better than from what I had. So yeah, so bending time is difficult when you are in the scenes, but it's actually much better when it comes to dramaturgy.
Thank you so much, BABUCARR. We need to start wrapping our session. So we've got 2 questions from Liani, and I think I'll just ask them and then we can perhaps wrap it up. So this one is for IKKA. How do you select which projects to support, and how do you match filmmakers with editing consultants? Sorry, IKKA, you muted.
Selection happens through our website where you have an application. We don't take let's say the pure TV docs, not nature films. Okay, if they are not very creative, not fiction films. So we look at you have to send the short synopsis and the one scene to evaluate the film. And if it will be accepted, we are very happy if it's a creative, difficult, challenging, and important to the people who are doing it and to the audiences. So we have actually established rough cut service to support filmmakers from the countries from Asia, Africa, Asia, Latin America, from those countries where there is not this network of producers and film foundations and consultants and training programs to give the support to those filmmakers. Also because we have seen that so many of them are fantastic stories, important stories. And then it's me, I'm like a matchmaker. We have 12 different editors. Some are more into narrative storytelling. Some are more conceptual. Some are from different, cultures. So we try to put always two people from different cultures, different countries, who independently will start to give the feedback to the filmmaker.
Great, thank you. The last question could open up a very long conversation, so I'm going to ask BABUCARR to try and keep it succinct. So the question is, BABUCARR, what changes that MATTI suggested have you rejected and why? Or where do you draw the line when taking his input versus your vision as a storyteller?
That's an interesting question. I'm trying to remember the timeline because we make adjustments almost every week. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Do break a little bit, but
Can
we
you
can
hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we make adjustments almost every week, but maybe just one place where we had a discussion and I said no, and then when he gave his idea and I got the support package that UN was supposed to give him, Corona came and it was now difficult for him to access the money. So MATTI said no, Corona was important there, but it's not emotional. Now let's make it to where he starts business and supposed to run a business, and now because of Corona he cannot sell as he should. There's a reason.
All right, BABUCARR, I think you're breaking again. So I think perhaps we should start wrapping the conversation, unless anyone has got anything else to add. Matti, do you want to say anything else? IKKA as well, if you want to add anything else. Otherwise, I think we can just wrap the discussion for today.
I say, Sarah, you had Leandro had a very good question. What BABUCARR rejected when Matti was proposing? I really like that is the right attitude from the director, not to accept, everything at all.
That's true. Matti, would you like to add anything else?
Yeah, I think BABUCARR is very strong as a director, and he knows what he wants, and that's a good thing because I do success things, and from the first day I say that I'm not here to make the film I want. I'm here to help you to make the film you want to make. So I do success some things, but of course he has to stay behind the things that we make, and he is the one who decides where to go and what to do. So I'm very happy to work with him because he says that he likes something, and he also says that I don't like that at all, or it's not good. I want to tell a different story. So that's very fine with me also.
That's great. He knows what he wants. All right. Well, Matti, IKKA, BABUCARR, thank you so much for joining us on this session. I'd like to thank the Encounters team as well for putting this together, as well as Generation Africa and STEPS. And yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much. All right. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.